convened. Should I say that again? Yeah. Did you all hear me? All right. Welcome to this extraordinary meeting of the Council, which has been convened to consider a proposal to begin consultation on the establishment of an East Midlands Combined County Authority. Before we move to our only item of business, do we have any apologies, please? Councillor Potter? Thank you. Councillor Nawaz?
Yeah, Councillor West, Councillor Martin, Councillor Hussain, Councillor Sandhu and Councillor Martin Rawson.
Yeah, we've got all those. Councillor Lind, is it? Right, okay. No other apologies? Thank you. Don't think there can be. Yep. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Don't quite see how there can be, really. Okay, that takes us on to the main item of business, which is a proposal to begin consultation on the establishment of an East Midlands Combined Authority. Combined Authority would see a new tier of local government created, covering Derby, Derbyshire, Nottingham and Nottinghamshire, with new powers and funding devolved from the government. A proposal has been published jointly by the 4 upper tier councils, who will all hold their respective council meetings this week. Included as appendices to this report are also the planned approach to the consultation and a high-level equalities impact assessment. The covering report includes several recommendations which can be moved either collectively or individually. Once moved, they will be treated as a motion and subject to the normal rules of debate. Once the debate is concluded, we'll move to the vote. Councillor Bolter, as Leader of the Council, will you move the recommendations in the report, please?
Mr. Mayor, happy to move them, but Councillor Barker's going to address the issues to start with, and I'll respond later on.
Thank you. Just as a technicality, can I ask that Councillor Barker is the mover of the motion, because you then will have a right of reply. Thank you.
I will certainly move the motion, yes, definitely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I think you've said what I was going to say, in actual fact. Fellow members of the Council, this is really the start of what will be an historic journey that this Council's moving on, or moving towards, given the fact that after public consultation, this matter will go to the Parliament, and it will become subject to an Act of Parliament, in as much that this is a new form of potential council for the future. I'm not going to dwell on the paper to a great extent, because certainly in the preliminary months leading up to this, there have been briefings for members, there have been briefings for leaders, it's been in the press, and I think everybody knows in this chamber, certainly knows of the preliminary findings and the preliminary suggestions that have been made by the 4 councils involved, obviously Derby, Derbyshire, Nottingham, Nottingham City, that is, and Nottinghamshire. And what we have before us tonight is the culmination of what all of those councils envisaged to be what this new model of governance should look like in relation to a combined council with the mayor as a head. Why has it come about? Quite simply because the government see that this is the way forward in relation to the way a council should work. It's more efficient. It does away with many small departments, etc., etc., and it brings about local governance to the monies that actually come down from Parliament. What it doesn't do, and what I must emphasise from the perspective of Derby City Council, it does not affect the autonomy of Derby City Council to maintain its own affairs. All it actually does is brings about the joining up, really, of government through one body to bring about funding, to bring about grants, etc., through to the city, through to all the four commensurate parts. It allows for, instead of many small groups, committees and so forth, which we have to apply for at the moment for grants and for capital, etc., it brings that under one roof through an elected mayor, and that mayor will have the ability to be able to dissipate that monies throughout the four authorities, together with it being under scrutiny of the four members of that authority, they being presumably, again dependent upon our final debates on the issue, but presumably the four leaders of the respective councils. That's all it does. It is, at this moment in time, as you see it before you, it is a paper for consultation. It is the way that the four councils have actually worked together to, in actual fact, bring about what they feel is an acceptable governance issue in relation to that tier with an elected mayor. It's not like Greater Manchester, it's not like the West Midlands, it's not like the Yorkshires. This is a new model. And so therefore, the government have insisted, quite rightly, that this is put to not only ourselves, but put to the public as well to see whether or not we wish in actual fact to go down this line. What it does release is over 30 years. The top figure, it releases 1.3 billion, and I repeat, 1.3 billion pounds of monies coming from government to that four-tier authority. It also, of course, there will be other grants and so forth, which we automatically are brought into, and which we are automatically given some part and parcel of. How it will be distributed, how it will go down, will be down to that upper tier through the mayor. But, as I say again, and I repeat again, from the perspective, and for all those that have read it, from the perspective of Derby City Council, we are still Derby City Council. We manage our own affairs. It's just that we actually go to this higher body for some of the funding. I don't propose, as I say, to go through the paper. Everybody's had a copy of it. Everybody's seen it for what it is. I repeat, it's a consultation document. We're asking this evening that it goes out to consultation to the public. We then obviously will look at that in the round when it comes back, see whether or not we need to tweak it, talk to our partners in this, the other three councils, see whether or not they need to tweak it similarly before it goes to government, and government will then legislate to make it an act of parliament. Hopefully we will have a shadow cabinet or a shadow authority in place by April next year, and then in 2024 there will be a new form of government for the four councils. It's the only game in town, ladies and gentlemen, and so for we would be, I feel, folly to in actual fact turn it down, be part of this exciting journey. Mr. Mayor, I move the recommendations as printed and ask that Council accept it.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded? Councillor Poulter, thank you. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right? Thank you. Councillor Graves.
Many are good ideas, but if we look back at Derby's history, there are many instances of civil service ideas that do not and did not work well. Notably, the A52, the incinerator, the assembly rooms come to mind. Nationally, the biggest error of judgment was the poll tax. Leading politicians are persuaded to make these decisions and then get it in the neck when it comes crumbling down. So I'm appealing to you to consider some simple facts and questions some of the arguments. Why are we being led down this path? Is it to make the government's job easier? They currently have responsibility for all these areas that a new super mayor would be responsible for. The ministers already get paid to do this, and now they want to hand it over. Will the salaries of the new mayor and the chief executive be taken out of the minister's pay? Of course not. It will be another cost to the taxpayer. And worse still, it will come out of the overall budget that should be spent on the area. Do we really need another layer of politicians? Do you think that the public want this? They are the ones we represent, so please consider them when you vote. Derby is one of the leanest councils in the UK in terms of politicians, unitary. However, consider the counties. They have 3 councils: parish, district and county. This post would add a 5th layer of politician for the counties. What a crazy idea. The government got rid of our more efficient police committees and replaced it with a 4th layer of government, the Police and Crime Commissioner, at a vast cost to the taxpayer. Now this paper wants to add yet another layer costing us millions more, right at the time when a lot of people in Derby are in poverty crisis. Most of our residents live in Band-Aid property, not like the rest of leafy Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire. I don't believe this is a good thing for Derby. The government talks about levelling up and makes out this is devolution. It is really dumbing down. Creating new layers of politician is not devolution. All it does is make responsibility more remote. As councillors, we have a direct connection with our public. We once had input into the police, but that link has now gone. A combined authority will give even greater remoteness. I'm sure you're all aware, for the record, this is not extra money, as it says in the paper, as Councillor Barker sort of tried to indicate. This is not new money, as politicians like to call it. It is a transfer of budget from government departments to this new political post. It is money that is already being spent. Are people prepared to pay an extra precept on their council tax bill to support this? A better solution would be to create a committee of MPs from all the area. They have local knowledge and would represent their constituents in this wider area. It would also help to ensure that poor civil service ideas are disregarded at an early stage. It would give direct sense and responsibility to our parliamentary representatives. This would negate any further need for more politicians, and it would not cost the taxpayers any more money than already paid.
Councillor Graves, can I just interrupt? The motion is about consulting the public of Derby. It is not about the merits or demerits of the proposal. Somebody will be debating that at a much later date. I do ask you to address your speech to the question whether or not we should consult the people of Derby.
Well, Mr. Mayor, with respect, I think this is about whether we go down this line, because we're going to go further and further down this line. And as Councillor Barker pointed out, it would then become a directive from government once we've made this decision. Anyway, I understand that you're all whipped and are compelled to vote how you are told, but I hope you will all consider how this affects your residents if it goes ahead. Mr. Mayor, I do have an amendment, and can I read the amendment out? The council agrees
Can I ask if this is the amendment you submitted to the monitoring officer?
It's a very similar one, Mr. Mayor.
And which you rejected because it was out of order?
Well, Mr. Mayor, it was rejected on the basis that legally it's not legal. The amendment basically is asking for a referendum on the matter so that the people can decide. This is about consultating the people of Derby, and surely the best consultation is to give them a referendum.
Can't quite see the difference myself, but can we have a copy of it so that the monitoring officer can rule whether or not it is in order? The monitoring officer advises me that this is the same motion that she declared out of order, therefore it is out of order.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Please resume your seat, Councillor Graves.
well, can I continue? I've still got some time.
If you have 1 minute 51, and
Mr.
I
Mayor,
do hope you'll talk about
is
consultation.
is this your ruling? Because at the end of the day, you're the mayor of this council.
This is my ruling as advised
your,
by the
your
monitoring
ruling is
officer.
that we should not give the people of this city a referendum on this very important issue as to whether they want another layer.
You are debating
of
your
politician.
amendment, please, which has
I'm not
been
debating the
ruled.
amendment.
Yes,
I'm
you
talking
are.
on the issue. You're talking
You are
about
asking me questions,
Mr. Mayor,
and
we're
I am
talking about consultation.
please take your seat.
We're talking
Please take your seat. Thank you. I have ruled that your amendment is out of order on the advice of the monitoring officer, who is legally qualified to advise us.
Mr.
I am not prepared to debate what you had in that amendment because it is out of order and we are not debating it. Please do not speak from a sedentary position. I will ask you to continue your speech in a moment. You have, I understand, 1 minute, 41 seconds, and I do hope that you're going to talk about consultation as in the substantive motion, which is unamended at the moment. Please continue.
Mr. Mayor, the proper consultation for this paper is to actually take a referendum to the people of Derby and ask them if this is what they want, if they want to pay.
That is legally incorrect.
If they
Please
want to pay
stick to the legal truth, and please
Mr.
stick
Mayor,
to
I
the...
didn't realise, Mr. Mayor, that you were here to stop debate.
I'm not here
as
to
an
stop
elected
debate.
councillor
I'm
for
here
this,
to...
as an elected
I'm here
councillor, I
to-
have a right to speak, and I have some time left to speak about it. Whether you agree with it or not is not relevant. It's whether I'm saying anything that I shouldn't be saying.
I've been
All I'm saying
extremely
is-
tolerant up to now, Councillor Graves, and I have a number of possibilities open to me, and I suggest that the meeting comes to order, and I have 3 other speakers who wish to speak on this, Councillor Repton, Councillor Shanker and Councillor Dinser, and if you don't return to the actual substantive motion about consultation, I will ask you to take your seat and go forward to those other councillors. So please don't talk about referenda, please talk about consultation.
So, Mr. Mayor, what you're saying is that I'm not allowed to talk about this particular issue in the way I want to talk about it. We have to talk about it in the way that you want to talk about it, and you think that is democratic. A referendum is actually a very democratic process. You know, referendums are very, very good for asking people what they want. But you consider stopping me speaking on this matter as a particular right that you have. I'm not being abusive. All I'm trying to do is put a point across. I really don't understand.
Please resume your seat. I'm prepared to suspend this meeting, if necessary. I'm here to chair this meeting according to the Constitution, which this entire council supports. If you want to change that Constitution, there are ways of doing so. But to defy my ruling, as you tend to be trying to do at the moment, is not a way to succeed. I suggest that we move now to Councillor Shanker's contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As expected, we've heard in recent months and with Councillor Barker's introduction how good a deal this is for Derby and indeed the East Midlands, and we should start consultation on that deal. What I would say is the argument and the sound bites on a pretty thin surface sound reasonable to anybody who's not looked at both the recent history or scratched below the surface. 1.14 billion, Councillor Barker, and I repeat, 1.14 billion, not 1.3, is a colossal amount of money. But it's over 30 years, and 30 budget-setting rounds is a long period of time in local government. It's 38 million a year.
Do you want to just pause, Councillor Shanker, while the Reform Derby people desert the room.
Not much democratic about that, is there?
I'm sorry, Councillor Shanker, we probably weren't listening to that, so please continue.
I suppose the traffic to Leicestershire might be bad. So, Mr Mayor, as I say, this equates to just £38 million a year when you divide this across the term of this proposal. I nor the Labour Group...
Right, Mr Mayor, just quickly, I didn't hear the first part of Councillor Shanker's statement because of the noise from the Reform Group leaving. It might be best, Councillor Shanker, if you want to start again, because I imagine the microphones may not
Can
pick it up.
we restart the clock, and can you restart your speech? Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr Mayor. As expected...
You might be an MP soon, so we have to listen to you.
We've heard a lot in recent months and here tonight with Councillor Barker's introduction how this is a very good deal for Derby and indeed the East Midlands. What I would like to say is the argument and the sound bites are reasonable if you don't look into the detail of recent history or scratch below a very thin surface. I've already corrected Councillor Barker, it's 1.14 billion and not 1.3, and it is, I agree, a colossal amount of money, but it's over 30 years and 30 annual budget setting rounds, which is a relatively long period of time in local government. It equates to £38 million a year, and when you divide that across the whole combined authority area, you start to get a much clearer picture. But what I will say, I nor the Labour Group wish to kill this idea of an East Midlands combined county authority at this stage prior to public consultation. Primarily, as it looks like this is the only vehicle in town that this chaotic government has to try to make up for the swinging budget cuts that has left this authority and this city in the position it is now. Sometimes we all forget, given this chaos in government, given the incompetence of the financial management of this administration over the last 4.5 years here in Derby, how bad austerity has been for Derby. And if you don't know, you will find out in the coming weeks. Derby City alone, Mr Mayor, to date has lost £750 million since 2011. Challenge these figures if you want. I welcome that. If you plot this over a 30-year period, the same period as this deal, it equates to, just for Derby alone, just over £2 billion of funding lost to our city. Multiply that across this proposed East Midlands region, and the figure will be over £10 billion. So the deal isn't remarkable, Councillor Poulter. It's £10 billion being taken out of the East Midlands and being replaced with a promise of £1.14 billion. Again, please challenge these figures if you think I'm misquoting. The deal signed on the 30th of August, 3 Prime Ministers ago, 3 Chancellors ago, and I've lost count of how many Secretaries of State for levelling up ago, isn't remarkable. The other pertinent point to make here, and I think Councillor Graves tried making it, but not very well, this isn't new money being invested here in Derby. The money is coming from existing MHCLG coffers, money that the department has for housing and local government that they currently choose not to give the East Midlands, but could do for future projects if they wanted to. As we've said, the deal over 30 years is £38 million per year. That equates to £516 per person of the 2.2 million residents living in the combined authority area. That figure is significantly less than York and North Yorkshire, £660 per head, Tees Valley, £675 per head, Cambridge and Peterborough, £731 per head, and £815 each given to West of England when it was founded in 2015. The East Midlands consistently lags behind on per head spending from Whitehall, and this deal does nothing but reinforce that historic imbalance. The simple truth is this deal was rushed through by a particular person trying to secure a job on a longer term basis, and he didn't get that job. To consult after the deal seems to have been signed is the wrong way around. We have reservations not just about an elected mayor, but the costs associated with running that office. On one hand, we talk about local government reorganisation to simplify accountabilities and make savings, yet we go and introduce another level of governance. Provision is being made to fund the authority's administrative function for only 2 years. What happens beyond that? The mayor will be allowed to set a precept. People, everybody must have experienced this, are hard-pressed financially. What I don't want is this mayoral authority to be an added burden on people's finances. So let's support the consultation, Mr. Mayor, but we still have some serious reservations about this whole deal.
Thank you. I've been very tolerant that you went off on a number of political points, but please, future speakers, can you restrict this to whether or not we should consult the people of Derby? That is what the motion says. Councillor Repton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The people of Derby, when consulted, will feel as we do, that this is a fait accompli. It's something we simply cannot refuse. We're being made an offer that we can't refuse, and the people of Derby, when consulted, will feel this is an unnecessary, expensive, extra layer of bureaucracy at a time when it is predicted we'll shortly experience swinging cuts to services and jobs following the Tories crashing and trashing our economy 4 weeks ago. The public, when consulted, will feel this looks a bit like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. If the ship is sinking, you need to repair it, not appoint another captain as we simply go down with it. Thank you, Mr.
Could you have repaired the Titanic? No, never mind. We'll pass over that. Councillor Dinser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, as Councillor Shankar said, in terms of the consultation, the draft proposal, for consultation, there can be no reason to say not go ahead. But there are concerns which are in the documentation which we need to be aware of and hopefully will be illuminated further in the consultation process, the 3-month process. Councillor Barker said at the beginning that this will not impinge on our autonomy as a Derby City Council, nor the other 4 councils. I think we need to be careful and make sure that it doesn't, because as Councillor Shankar just said, the admin costs for the Mayor's office, up to £2 million, will be funded for the first 2 years, but there is the question mark, what happens beyond that? And questions asked of officers previously in the briefings indicated that it could well mean that the constituent authorities would have to fund that administrative cost. Surely, in a time of austerity, the cost of living crisis and increasing mortgages and so on our and energy costs, we cannot put more burden on our council spending if that was to be the case. It also, in the document, although it doesn't say that the precept raising powers of the mayor, whoever is elected as mayor, is not decided upon at the beginning, but the mayor will have authority to raise taxation, whether it's to have increased funding input into the region or is to actually compensate for some of the ongoing costs. That precept raising powers there is no veto on this council or any of the other authorities in terms of whether the mayor does that or not. We have our own powers to access funding, either from ourselves or others, but that mayoral autonomy is potentially, in the future, an extra burden of taxation on local communities. And is that something we want to bear? I think that's something that we need to consider very seriously. So, and Councillor Shankar has already said, the £1.1 billion for 4 constituent authority and the districts that are supposed to benefit from this funding over 30 years of £38 million per annum with no additional inflationary costs at the moment being factored in. So it's a flat line cash over 30 years. What will it be worth in 30 years' time when we look at that? These are the sort of details in the consultation document we really need to clarify and actually say, are we getting a good deal? It doesn't look like it. Is it new money? Does not look like it on the face of it. So what are we really getting with the additional administrative costs and another set of bureaucracy in our local government finances and governance? These are questions, Mr. Mayor, we need to consider seriously. And of course, let's go ahead, get the draft proposal and get the feedback from the public. But we will hopefully get a chance to debate this further in March 2023.
Thank you. Councillor Skelton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having read the document, and I do hope that people in the public do read it very carefully and take part in the consultation. But there are, as has already been said in the chamber, there are a number of things that I would want to draw people's attention to. There's a lot of unanswered things within the document, as has been said, it is rather been put together in a hurry. One thing that certainly struck me was we're obviously awaiting the mini budget. We should have had it a couple of days ago, but we didn't. And it's widely reported that there will be cuts being made probably across the board. And as this deal has not gone through Parliament, are we sure that what we're going to consult on will actually be what is on offer further down the line post this round of cuts? Also, people need to look and think that this introduces a type of devolution, but it's not real devolution, shall I call it. The government still has the financial control. And in fact, Councillor Barker said the government has chosen this method. So we weren't allowed to decide at all. So to me, real devolution is about us deciding our own fate in our own localities. So to me, it doesn't ring true that this is the real devolution. There is also quite a lot of concern, particularly among borough councils and districts, but in fact this also could be an issue for unitaries, that we could end up having some kind of what you might call reverse devolution. In other words, some of our current things that we do, such as some of the things to do with planning and some to do with economic development, may well get sucked up into this mayoral authority if we're not very careful. And so while there can be benefits for strategic overview of these sort of things, and particularly with housing and things like that, the actual implementation and on the ground stuff really does need to be done locally. So I would ask people to really be careful of that and reflect this in the consultation responses that they give. Governance is another thing that the details of which are not very clear. So I would also ask people in their consultations to actually spell out the sorts of principles and things that they would like to see. I think it will need to go forward on a consensus basis. So not really the usual UK political culture. And we also need to obviously have a very strong scrutiny role within that. The other thing that we are not, unlike some of the other areas that have gone down this road, we are not, as it were, a natural geographical entity where people feel they belong. In fact, down the line, it could be that who becomes the mayor, or perhaps more where they come from, could well get rather controversial. For example, I think if they're actually from Nottingham, I suspect many people in Derby may well start to nickname that person the Sheriff of Nottingham. And with that, Mr Mayor, I will finish my speech. Thank you.
I think that would be a better title, Sheriff, wouldn't it? There's all this confusion about the title Mayor. People think I'm going to get a huge salary, which is quite unfair. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is part of a really important decision and process that we have in front of us at the moment. It's something that could change the direction of the whole of Derbyshire, and I include Derby in that, and the whole of Nottinghamshire, and obviously Nottingham, for years to come. What we're trying to look at in that is the proposal that has been circulated to us. Now, I don't think that that proposal is very clear. I don't think it's very visionary. I don't think it's entirely consistent. And my colleagues are somehow talking next to me. And the thing that I find is the way it is weirdly specific in some areas, but short-term and unclear in others. And in fact, there is an admission, you know, our first recommendation is to approve this proposal, but the fourth recommendation for us today is actually to allow any typographical or technical amendments to be made after we've agreed it. And that means sounds to me almost like giving people a clean sheet of paper. It's not just going to be taking out the punctuation that's wrong in places. It's going to be rewriting bits that are technical, which we've got wrong, or it's rethinking it. It's a pretty big second point there, 2.4. However, I do feel that the consultation has scope to be able to look at these things. Hopefully there will be a willingness not to feel that what we have in front of us now has to be what goes to government, that the consultation will be meaningful. As others have said, it would have been very good if this consultation on the proposal had not come now, but had come back in the summer. At the briefings that we've had, and I very much thank officers for having given us the briefings that we have had, because otherwise we would know even less than we do now. We asked whether it could go to scrutiny, we asked whether it could go to audit and governance, and we were told actually this isn't something that the other councils are doing either. And it does rather leave me with the feeling that this is being something that is being imposed on us by the government, or maybe by officers locally, or maybe by the leaders of our councils locally, because there is this carrot being dangled of cash. And as Labour have explained, this cash is not actually that big over a 30-year period and over the geographical area that we're talking about. However, that doesn't mean that something like this isn't important, and it does mean that the consultation needs to be right. So consultation needs to happen. We are where we are, but I'm not convinced that the proposal is the proposal that we actually is good enough to go out as it is now, and I'm not convinced that the process for achieving that is good enough. But the fundamental thing that's wrong here is that we're being offered money with strings in a system that we haven't designed. It's not clear what problem we're trying to solve by the additional tier of local government that's being set up. And we seem to be, as part of this process, we're putting the cart before the horse. There are lots of things that we could do to improve local government, but to accept a proposal led by government producing not a lot of money, which will actually make it harder for us to receive any additional powers from government, because they will get wedged into the mayoral layer above us, whereas if the mayoral layer was not there, we might get those additional powers at our city level. It seems to me as though at the moment it's not a very good deal, but I agree we need to consult on it. So I would like to take the amendments separately, because I can't support the proposal as it is at the moment. I don't think it's well enough written, I don't think it's well enough formed, but I do support that if we do need to go out to consultation, the consultation is really important. Thank you.
For the sake of accuracy, I'm advised that this will be subject to scrutiny in due course. The proposals will be, not the consultation, obviously the proposed consultation, but the proposals themselves will be subject to scrutiny. Is that correct? Thank you. Any other speakers before I come to the seconder and proposer? Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to draw attention to Appendix 2, the consultation approach, because it states at the very beginning that the consultation must be undertaken at a time when proposals are still at a formative stage. And I'm just have to ask, is that where we are right now? Are we really at a formative stage? Because I believe this principle has already failed. We've all seen the handshake photo opportunity, and the deal is done. We can't amend the deal. The public can't input into this deal. And I believe that this means that it's another failure of this administration. Add to that, failure to secure or restore proper local authority funding in their 5 years, failure to replace that which has been taken from us over 12 years, failure to control the city's finances, and now, in this matter, failure to secure a decent deal for Derby. As we've heard, this shoddy deal doesn't even touch the funds that we've lost over the last 12 years of austerity under a Tory government. Your party has dressed levelling up as an all-singing, all-dancing performance, but in reality, this deal is just a sideshow. And that this is the only deal that we are forced to take makes us feel like it's crumbs at the table. Crawling cap in hand, like Oliver Twist begging for more. It's an embarrassment to the East Midlands. This deal that 3 Prime Ministers on, we don't even know will see the light of day. But, as pointed out, this meeting is to authorise a consultation. And while I do have grave concerns that we are consulting without all the details, without all the information, without all the answers to our questions that we've been asking, including whether the deal will take into account rising inflation. Well, I look forward to reading the opinions of Derby people on this. I hope they are awarded the opportunity to contribute meaningfully and are able to voice their opinion on this deal. And I hope that they hear us when we say it's a very poor show. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Poulter, would you like to exercise your right to speak as seconder?
I would, Mr. Mayor, thank you. But the first thing I need to do is to thank the officers of the council here for their support and efforts in relation to negotiating this deal and getting the report to this phase. It's been a remarkable level of work that's been needed. We've led on governance, we've led on communications, we've led on transport angles in relation to these negotiations, and the officers have done this council proud and helped us to get to a stage where I would contend that we've got a really, really good deal for the East Midlands and for Derby in particular. So that said, I could answer all the questions. I absolutely understand some of the concerns raised tonight, but I can also reassure everybody that there wasn't a single question or concern raised tonight that hasn't been considered in the process of coming to this arrangement, this deal with government. We've covered all of those angles, we understand all those, and I could answer them. If I had an hour, I could talk you through and answer in relation to all of those. I don't have an hour, Frankie, but because that's not what we're here for tonight. What we're here for tonight is to agree to take this draft proposal, and Councillor Peatfield, that's what it is. It is a draft proposal. It's not the finished deal. It's not the finished article. It will be a work in progress, developing as it goes along, and the signing, the happy handshake signing, wasn't on the done deal. That was in relation to us agreeing to put a remarkable proposal to government, which they accept, and that's where we're at in relation to where we're at in regard to the process of this. And it is a long process. It's a process that will give opportunity for everybody to have their say and to understand, and our communications team will help us to lead on all that in the due process. What we need to remember is that whether they're fancy, if we look at fanciful figures over decades as to where money's gone or where money's, what we know is that the East Midlands as a region, and Derby in particular, have been underfunded. We've been at the bottom of the tree in relation to transport funding, skills funding, you name it, the East Midlands has suffered by not being part of a mayoral combined authority. If you look around, you talk about it's not new money. It's not new money because we've never had it before, because when other combined authorities automatically get a share of whatever is going, whether it's levelling up funding, whether it's future high streets funding, SPF, strategic transport, as a combined authority, we won't be in the process of having to bid in and trying to outdo Nottingham or Leicester or Manchester or Sheffield or anything. There is an algorithm which will provide each and every combined authority with an appropriate level of funding for what we're looking to do. And actually, in terms of the deal that we've done, get the point about it being 38 million over 30 years. But if you think about it and look at what Manchester and West Midlands are doing now, is they're bidding to change their deal, to increase the money they get, because we in the East Midlands have negotiated a far better deal than they started on and are currently on. So that they are trying to, Councillor Peafold, I didn't interrupt you, please. They are trying to catch up with us already on this. So the 38 million per year is not what we'll be having in 30 years' time. There will be opportunities to bid into that and other things, but it's not the full extent of what we are going to gain from this arrangement. We have to arrange a strategic transport board, more money will come with that. Any other funding, like the ones I've just mentioned, we will get a share of. So it's not a case of not new money. We've never had it before because we've been left behind the gate. So, as I say, there's no intention, I'm looking at the time, there's no intention to invoke any precept where that's happened. There's 9 combined authorities so far, 8 have the power, only 2 have utilised any precept, 1 because of the PCC levy, because they've taken over control from the PCC, and another one for a special strategic transport funding that was specifically agreed. What I can say is it's a potentially remarkable deal for Derby, and as part of the process, go along with it. We need to agree this consultation and tell the public, tell our partners, and sell the deal to the East Midlands for us all to benefit. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Barker, right to some.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't really add much more than what Councillor Paul has said. The 4 main authorities, as I said earlier on, are having this debate this week themselves. Nottingham City themselves had a debate yesterday evening and put this consultation paper through. I understand it's not City tomorrow night. Derbyshire tomorrow night and not City on not County Council on Friday. And so therefore we have the opportunity, as I say, to put this through this evening. It's consultation. Yes, there's many things still to be crossed. It's skeletal, we know that, but there again, that gives us the opportunity to amend it, to put our voice forward when it comes to the final paper. And all I can say is that we don't want to miss this opportunity to put Derby on the map in the modern idiom of this new council type. And so therefore it's my recommendation to council, and I put it to council, that we agree recommendations 2.1 to 2.4 inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker has moved the recommendations collectively, so the vote will be taken on them collectively. Those in favour of the recommendations as set out, all together, thank you, please show. Okay. Those against, please show. It's carried and con. Thank you. That brings the business of our extraordinary meeting to a close. Thank you all for your attendance this evening, and I'll see you all again at Remembrance Sunday, I hope, and on Wednesday the 23rd for our next scheduled meeting.